You're listening to the Best of the Sean Prue Show. I'm Mark Wigmore. We've got Rosie O'Donnell.
We sure do. The woman who needs no introduction, from The View, from the
Her own
Flintstones,
talk
from
show.
Her 11-time daytime Emmy award winning. She's a mother. She's an activist. You love her, you hate her. I happen to love her. Rosie O'Donnell. So Rosie O'Donnell, I thought about you last week, and people like you in California finally got some sense about same-sex marriage, and it made me think, what did that day mean to you as someone who got married in San Francisco, I think in 2004, and then all of a sudden the Supreme Court violated all same-sex marriage licenses?
Well, they said first we got married, and then they said, you're not married, but then they just said, well, now it's illegal to say that they can't. But we're not legally remarried because of that. We have to go and do it again.
Was there the same sort of relation that we talked to, for example, the editor-in-chief of The Advocate that day, and they were like head over heels? Did you and your partner feel that at all?
Well, it was really interesting because when the decision came down and our marriage was declared invalid, Kelly was very upset. And I remember thinking, wow, honey, I didn't expect them to uphold it right away. I think it's going to be something that's going to take a while. But, when any civil rights act, whenever any repressed minority stands up and says we've had enough, it takes a while for the world to catch on. I mean, Rosa Parks didn't stay seated on the bus, and the next day the Civil Rights Act passed.
It sounds like you were the one with like the more grounded approach to it.
Well, I was
then.
sort of expecting that it would happen. So when it happened, it didn't feel negative to me. But when it was overturned the other day, I called her up. I'm like, hey, did you hear that? And she's like, I'm surprised, Jeff. I go, I don't know. I just, taking it away, kind of, I was expecting. But the giving it back, I was like, wow.
It was like a nice, pleasant slap across the face.
Well, I don't know. I was happy about it. I thought it's in the right direction. We're moving in the right direction, I think. Finally, we've swung so far to the right that people are going, hey, let's just, get back to basic civil rights for human beings in this country.
I know, and as a Canadian where we've had that blessing of the rights for a little while now, it's hard to watch your brothers and sisters in the States struggle for something that now feels like really natural up here.
In many, many ways, Canada seems to have it way ahead of us in a lot of areas.
Much more with the one and only Rosie O'Donnell in just a moment.
You're listening to the Best of the Sean Prue Show. I'm Mark Wigmore. We've got Rosie O'Donnell.
We sure do. The woman who needs no introduction, from The View, from the Flintstones,
Her own talk
from
show.
Her 11-time daytime Emmy award winning. She's a mother. She's an activist. You love her, you hate her. I happen to love her. Rosie O'Donnell. I surf your website all the time, and we talk here on the show a lot about the obsession many queers have with youth and looks and body fascism. And I was reading your most recent blog entry about seeing a friend your age on TV the other night with a brand new face.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this as someone who posts pictures of herself almost like daily online with no makeup to boot?
Well,
which
it's
is so
interesting
bold.
because first of all, it's a lesbian woman, and second of all, it's a political lesbian woman.
Yeah.
It's a it wasn't like it was a famous movie star. Like, I kind of expected so much of movie stars now that I don't even notice. Like, you see somebody who's famous who does it, you're like, yeah, well, that's sort of sadly what happens.
Par for the course.
When somebody does it who's not in show business even, or who's kind of, I don't know, it startled me. I mean, I think that it's kind of sad, especially if you are an actor, because who is ever going to play the Geraldine Page roles?
Bingo.
Like, who's going to be Colleen Dewhurst?
Bingo.
There's going to be no one playing anybody who looks somewhat real on film or TV, and I don't know. I don't really get it. But listen, I'm not somebody who made a living on how I look. So if you've made your money and you got your validation about your physical body and some kind of perfection that you attained in your 20s and 30s, it's hard to be 40 and 50.
Are you making any kind of statement, or are you just being you when you post those pictures? Because it is so it's refreshing, and not a lot of celebrities do what you're doing.
Well, what happened? I was so used to seeing myself as Rosie O'Donnell everywhere I looked.
Mm-hmm.
I'd see her on TV. I'd see her in the newsstand. That I really took the first year I was off the show. I took a picture of myself every day for 1 year. This is before I had the blog, and I put it all together at the end of the year to show. Okay, now I have an idea of what it is I really do look like.
Mm-hmm.
It took me that long to get used to looking at myself without all the fake spackle on.
And about the blog, I mean, you're doing it better than most celebrities that I would say that I follow. And the other thing I've noticed is that a lot of people say, oh, in so many of your pictures you look sad, and you'll say that's kind of one of your normal looks.
That's my face.
Is that your normal state of mind? Because you've written before and talked before about your struggle with depression.
Yeah, I think it is my normal state. For years, people would see me in the supermarket when I was on my show and say, oh, my God, what's the matter? And I'm like, well, nothing's the matter. You used to see me like this. Hey, welcome to the Rosie O'Donnell Show. There's performance mode for people, you know. And it's a totally different, you know, you talk to a rock star, Melissa Etheridge on stage is very different than Melissa Etheridge at home. You know, and there is somewhat of a persona there, even if it's, you know, an aspect of you. But, you know, who I am in my life, I'm not performing all the time. I'm just living.
Much more with the one and only Rosie O'Donnell in just a moment.
You're listening to the Best of the Sean Prue Show. I'm Mark Wigmore. We've got Rosie O'Donnell.
We sure do. The woman who needs no introduction, from The View, from the
her own talk
from
show.
11-time daytime Emmy award-winning. She's a mother. She's an activist. You love her, you hate her. I happen to love her. Rosie O'Donnell. How do you keep your sanity when it seems like, I mean, when you cause a controversy or when you're in the middle of a controversy, whether it's The View or your issues on gun control or whatever, how do you keep your sanity when it seems like everyone in the world is talking about something you said last night?
Well, if I'm quoted accurately, I don't mind, you know, but it's when they take the quote out of context or, you know, they take it to mean something that it didn't, that's what gets, you know, it gets infuriating. But in some way you have to let that go and know that if your intent was pure, then the result is going to be okay. You know, I knew that the intent of doing The View was pure, and my intent was to, you know, work with and Barbara Walters and help her in some way for all she's done for women and for me, and to try to open Elizabeth Hasselbeck's mind and heart. And,
you tried.
I
you
did.
tried.
And
oh, my God, you tried.
I really did. I tried hard.
Do you think you succeeded in any way?
Yeah, I think I did, in a way that scared her.
The way that scared her.
The gates of love, they budged an inch.
Well, you know, in some way, I think it knocked her off her very rigid kind of path and belief system.
And really young.
She's very young, and she's, you know, not only young in the number, but
a young soul.
Yeah, she's young. And she came here, and I invited her at the beginning of the show, and she brought her child, and our kids were playing. And I remember she said innocently, and really innocently, she said, oh, my God, your family's so normal. Your kids are so, like, almost like it surprised her.
Yeah.
You know, and she actually commented on TV about what good parents we were. Now, listen, I'm sure she got a lot of shit from that. You know, I'm sure a lot of people said to her, that's not okay in her Christian right.
Who were expecting her to represent.
And I think that I put her in a very awkward position of having to actually know and care about and love someone who is supposedly wrong or the enemy.
Much more with the one and only Rosie O'Donnell in just a moment.
You're listening to the Best of the Sean Prue Show. I'm Mark Wigmore. We've got Rosie O'Donnell.
We sure do. The woman who needs no introduction, from The View, from the
her own talk
from
show.
11-time daytime Emmy award-winning. She's a mother. She's an activist. You love her, you hate her. I happen to love her. Rosie O'Donnell. You just mentioned Barbara Walters, and I'm just about finishing her new memoirs, and I'm wondering if you've read it and what you think of her side of her story, where she talks about your time on The View.
Yeah, I read it. I thought it was very beautiful and touching, and, you know, I think she was as honest as she can be, you know, and I think that that's her perception and her truth, and what it was for Barbara Walters is different than what it was for me, and I love and respect her, and I always will, and she's 80 years old.
And I love you for saying it that way.
She's in her late 70s. I don't know how old she really is, but
true.
She's admitting to the late 70s. I don't even know how old she is. She's unbelievably accomplished. She's, you know, emotion scares her.
Yes.
And I think that my forcing her to be as emotional as I am with people that I love and with issues that I care about was hard for her.
When you are having a disagreement with someone, you can be so far off base from each other's reality that it's not even the same story anymore. And
no,
it really isn't.
And I don't really care to correct it for her because it's okay how she needs to think about it. It's okay what it is for her, you know, and you know, at the end of the day, it's about forgiving and loving. And, you know, when I left there, she wasn't there that day, the fight. And, you know, and I said to her, listen, I knew you before this, and I'm going to know you after.
I have to move on and ask you about joining Cyndi Lauper, the True Colors Tour this year, and what does it mean to you? I'm not even going to ask you.
Listen, I love her. She's one of the, you know, most revered members of our community, and she has been since the beginning. And she has a sister, Ellen, who's gay, and she's supported her since she was, you know, a little kid, and Ellen used to get beat up for wearing boys' clothes, and Cyndi would be right there next to her, and I adore her. She's a brilliant artist, and she never forgets her people, and it matters to her more than it matters to a lot of gay people I know.
What's the message of the tour for you?
For me, it's, you know, find your family.
That's
find
really
your
sweet.
family.
That's really sweet. Rosie O'Donnell, I want to say thank you so much for your time. The people of Toronto are so jazzed to hear you on Proud FM right now, and thank you so much. And enjoy the tour. That's a rigid schedule you're on.
Yeah, no, I'm only doing 15 dates, so.
Oh, only 15.
And I'm going to put my kids on the bus, and we're going to go to Colorado, and it's going to be a whole family adventure.
Amazing. I want to thank Rosie O'Donnell for joining us. You are listening to the Best of the Sean Prue Show.